So it's supposed to be based off of what's his name? Joel
Osteen. Yeah.
Was it?
Osteen.
Goldstein?
No,
Olstein.
just
Olstein.
Yeah.
Olstein, yeah. So the idea is that it takes a bunch of his tweets and literally replaces the word God with dick.
That's amazing.
Nothing that has happened to you is a surprise to your dick. He's ordering your steps. If the door's closed, it was supposed to close. If the person walked away, they were supposed to walk away. Don't get bitter. Keep traveling steadily.
I love that so much. Oh, man. All right.
Yeah, during the time, I forgot what.
Sometimes the reason
was.
it's taking so long is because what your dick has for you is bigger than what you've imagined. He's imagined you prepared to carry the weight of the blessing, the weight of the influence.
Oh, interesting. Oh, look at the back of eyes. Hello, yes, we're clanking.
We're clinking. We're clinking.
That's
Are we
not
clanking
an
though?
alcoholic beverage, sir. Clank, 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 clank.
Clink,
clank.
clink. Oh, we already did that
Hello.
part.
We did. We got skipped ahead of you because you were too busy with your backup ice. Okay? No ice, baby. It's time for what we like
Last
to call Strange Happy Hour, where we come together each and every week to discuss with you the very cool tech news and, of course, the extremely nerdy video game news. And what news? They're not nearly as exciting as last week. Last week was like a bombshell. We can't even pretend this week will be that level. But there are a couple of stories we need to go to from the top. I want to talk about how Microsoft is still open to buying more studios after Bethesda's acquisition. We were talking last show, trying to discuss and speculate ourselves, is this the final acquisition? It appears that is not the case. Rumors are it'll be a Japanese developer with a certain blue hedgehog, but we'll see in the future. Bethesda will also apparently be run semi-independent after the acquisition, which leaves up hope for these games actively coming to PS5 and Switch. We will
Didn't
see.
Activision say that too?
Activision is their own company. We talk about it later.
When
Judge says that Epic and Apple battle should be done in front of a jury and have the jury determine this, which means the court date will more than likely be pushed back to next summer. Those are all of our big things from the top. But, of course, there's other things I'd love to talk about the show. I would love to talk about the fact that CD Projekt Red promised that they would have no crunch on Cyberpunk, and now they just issued an email to everyone that they're crunching to finish the game. I'd also love to talk about all the big announcements that happened at the Tokyo Game Show, or the fact that the ex-Blizzard CEO has started up his own company, Dreamhaven, but we don't have time to talk about all these things because there is not enough time on the planet. You guys complain all the time. And by you guys, I mean one individual. His name is Dylan, and he barely watches the show, but he complains that we go too long, and I'm going to ramble for a little bit longer just so he gets angry. Of course, we can't talk about everything, but we do have our own individual topics that we talk about each and every week on this very show that we like to discuss amongst ourselves in our quarantine bunker, sipping from our delicious special guests while we gather together the thing we like to deem our own important
Shit. No, important.
There we go. That was perfect. I like that. I like that a lot. That was good. I think we're going to start with you, Dispatcher, because this seems to be the most interesting story in the sense of timing and people being shit.
You mean the biggest flop probably to have come out from probably the biggest stance of hype,
Yes.
preceding it.
Yes.
So NVIDIA and the 3000 series cards has released finally. I have myself not picked one up.
Shame.
I just bought a new car, so
Yeah,
I did that instead.
What car did you get?
I did.
You got a car?
I did. I got a Mercedes C43.
Oh, what happened to the green machine?
It's it was due time. Value came up.
Wow.
Value came value. No, the value came up on the car, so it was worth time trading it in.
Okay.
But I have not picked one up myself yet. The 3080s still elude me, and even if I wanted to pick one up, if you wanted to pick one up, you can't. They're tremendously out of stock and have been tremendously out of stock since about 5 seconds after they dropped at 9 a.m. On, what was it, last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday, yeah.
So there was no chance that hardly anyone was getting one. It was kind of luck of the draw of if you refresh the page and you happen to see the button that said add to cart. We had a couple people add them to carts and could not check out with them. Brent, you had a similar experience with PS5.
Absolutely.
So it was kind of an issue constantly that they weren't going to come in stock. But, for those of you who did get them, congrats. And then those same people started immediately having problems.
I believe there's a timeline you can walk us through.
Pretty much. There's a lot of different second party manufacturers anyway that take the reference design that NVIDIA puts out and builds their own card layouts with different swap in components here and there. But the idea is that certain testing specs that have to be met for it to be officially classified as an NVIDIA 3080 card based on whatever design that the second party company comes with to try to give them an edge, in selling their card. Like maybe the clock has been increased, or you've gone for higher quality components to improve reliability in the device, or whatever it is, Colorful being the first manufacturer anyway to generally kind of push the limits of what they can do on the cheap. Started reporting instability issues with an approved card from NVIDIA, but they did it unofficially. There was nothing public about this. They did it through their own internal email, or through their own internal email system. The first customers started reporting problems with the cards on September 17th, or just after September 17th. So like most of that anyway would see, it says September 17th started reporting problems anyway, which I don't understand, because September 17th, or was it 2 Wednesdays ago now?
I could have sworn they didn't go on sale until the 18th, but I don't know, man.
They didn't, but people got reviewers and whatnot got their product in order to review.
Well, yeah, this specifically mentions that no reviewer had reported the issues at that point. So, and it was talking about customers reporting the problems.
Regardless, it went on sale.
Right.
We know it happened. People are having issues.
There were so none of the reviewers had problems apparently with any of these, any of the cards that they were given, second party or the first party Founders Edition card. Actually, the Founders Edition card does not have any of these problems.
It literally launched on the 17th.
Yeah. So September 23rd, there was Computer-Based made an article on a crash to desktop issue, specifically videocards.com, the website that actually has the article linked in the description, or in the document in the description, had put out the first English report that I guess they wanted to spout that off particularly. But September 25th, Igor's lab, Igor Walsek, who's well known in the overclocking community and the hardware community, publishes his first analysis, I guess, of the issue, and particularly identifying that a particular type of capacitor that's used for power filtering on the card for the processor to be able to operate at higher frequencies may have been the culprit of the issue. The reason is, I guess, across his testing, 2 different types of capacitors are used on some of the better made cards. So there are
pause caps, which are the cheaper ones, and the MLCCs, which are the higher end ones.
So actually, it's the other way around.
Really?
The funny part is and so like Gigabyte talks specifically. So videocards.com in the article, Gigabyte as the last manufacturer listed in their timeline here specifically talks about the fact that the MLCCs are actually a cheaper version. Like they are not necessarily more expensive than pause caps, and pause caps are actually supposed to be able to handle better temperatures, which is generally why they go with pause caps, but they can't quite handle higher frequencies quite as well. MLCCs are the reverse of that. So MLCCs instead, so pause caps are one giant solid state capacitor that gets put in place, terminals on both ends. MLCC style is 5x2 tiny little chips in a row. And if you look at the imagery of even just the thumbnail of the image from actually Hardcore Overclocking, the second video in the video cards article, it shows that sort of setup.
Fire.
What's that?
It's on fire. It was a joke.
Exactly.
Keep going.
No, so the MLCCs are actually cheaper to put in place than the pos caps are. The difference is the MLCCs can handle higher frequencies, but can't handle the thermals for it. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a trade-off, you know. What one do you go with, you know, in this sense, you know? A lot of the companies that decided to just stick with pos caps because they are cheaper. The pos caps are more expensive and supposed to be more stable. Unfortunately, aren't great at filtering out the power coming through for higher frequencies on the chip. And particular, the second article that I had linked about the Tesla's tested the NVIDIA new driver fix version, was it 456.55 of the NVIDIA drivers anyway, that sort of fixes this problem. Basically, it's a difference in the clock speed whenever it's being boosted in particular. So standard clock speeds work fine. It's when they start pushing into their own specified boosted range that pushes past the 2 gigahertz per core limit or line, basically. So the frequency in particular that PC World, the editor Brad Chacos from PC World had specifically had found that once it pushed to 2025 megahertz, that's when it really started to have problems. That's when it would have the crash to desktop issue. What would happen is the NVIDIA driver would encounter an error. I guess it was like a system lockup or some loss in the calculation. They still haven't quite rooted out the exact, I guess, cause of the problem, because even like the manufacturers specifically have said, look, we still don't quite know 100% everything here. We just know that this seems to work.
Interesting.
So, you know, like because what was it? Which company was it? I think it was EVGA said they had spent a full week of R&D just trying to figure out the cause of the problem. So they had gone to just swapping out the pos caps to MLCCs and redesign the board. They said that none of the EVGA boards have this problem because they all have MLCCs and pos caps mixed to get a good even blend, basically, to give you the reliability you need there. However, the review units that went out did have the full 6 pos cap array. So they are in the process of swapping all that out now, or have already done that, one or the other, to resolve that issue.
They were the only ones that went all 6. Either Zotac did as well, which I find interesting because the way they were describing the pos caps were that they were almost like they were inferior to the MLCCs. From a frequency perspective, they are.
Okay, so MLCCs are cheaper to implement, and the materials are generally cheaper. But it seems like that because of a thermal issue, pos caps are generally the go-to for that. Because if you want to push limits with frequencies, if you can get enough pos caps in there to filter well enough, then it's really not a problem. You know, you push frequencies, you have enough pos cap, enough pos cap capacitor filters in place to be able to filter the power coming into the processor that it's not an issue. Now I don't know enough about the circuit design to really say about like what kind of electrical noise you're really filtering out, as far as, like instabilities and how that causes instabilities in the processor itself. But power needs to be clean coming into most of your processors. Your CPUs and your graphics cards, your external devices all need to have some sort of power filtering in place. And you can sort of control some variants of that based on how good your power supply is, whether you have a battery backup before your computer, and some other things that may affect that. But this seems to be a pretty good across the board. Doesn't matter how clean the power is, like people are having a very consistent issue of this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you could put a line filter in, and that would probably help out considerably, I would think.
It would, but if your power supply still does not handle the AC to DC conversion in a very clean fashion, or let's say you're getting dirty wall power because it doesn't maintain a proper 120 volts here if you're in the US or in North America, then you're still going to run into issues. The battery backup's the only way to get a good, clean, like stable 120 volts. I said 120 hertz. 120 volts, 60 hertz. Out of your power supply.
Some people would say that you can't convert the AC DC because they go past that.
Shut up.
That was a good joke. That was a really good joke. Come on.
I'm gonna move
Come on. I think what's
I
interesting.
actually don't even like ACDC.
So
I don't either.
So here's the big deal. There was so much hype for this. This graphics card had
on this very show. We hyped it up quite a bit.
So much hype. We did.
But I was happy that the scalpers were getting screwed at first. I was like, you got what you deserve.
So not so much. Supply is still a problem. Like I checked today, NVIDIA still has them out of stock for the Founders Edition. And when I checked Amazon's page, it said currently unavailable for literally every type of manufacturer that produces a 3080.
I didn't realize how many manufacturers there were.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
On top of that, the manufacturers all did it differently. They did it their own way. Like MSI had 2 rows of the MCCLs or whatever. Where's this freaking acronym, dude?
MLCCs.
Well, 3 should be the limit for acronyms. That's just my
MLCCs and versus POSCAPs.
Yeah, and it had 4 POSCAPs. And I was like, those people who did that didn't have these issues.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're lucky.
Well, so what seems to be the optimal configuration anyway was the configuration that I think it was MSI or Asus had gone with.
Asus actually ended up going with all
MLCC. Yeah, if you can control your thermals well enough through whatever heat sink source that you have, then that's fine. Because like the reference that the reference that everyone's is basing this off of is the NVIDIA reference card or the NVIDIA Founders Edition card. And the Founders Edition card has a set of 2 POSCAPs or 4 POSCAPs, 2 on each outside, and then 2 MLCCs in the middle. So you get a good power or high frequency handling from the center. You get good power distribution and thermals from the outside. And you can find some sort of balance in between there, so when the POSCAPs can't handle the higher frequencies, the MLCCs can kind of pick up the slack. And the issue is that this is the backside of where the actual GPU, the actual chip sits soldered on the end of this board. There is no room to add more. There's no room to, really clean this up any further without a ton of engineering to redesign this further. And we're really working with NVIDIA to change their reference design to make this better. So
it blows me away how something so minute as this can cause such a catastrophic problem.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Whenever you're getting into the current age of electronics and the way that we build these things now is they are so microscopically small, and the type of precision that needs to happen with these is so tight on its tolerances that like if you're half a volt off on something, which to most people working in electronics sounds minuscule to some extent. If you see 12.5 volts versus 12 volts on your car, you're not really going to bat an eye at it. But if you see 3.5 versus 3 volts sometimes on some of these smaller electronics, because your tolerance are so tight on the processor that it can't handle more than that or more than 3 volts, you can kind of run into problems.
We've talked about
throwing
it
numbers
before.
out, but
yeah, we've talked about it before in the show of like the efficiency versus durability, right? Like as you become far more efficient, there are more moving parts, there are more things to make that efficiency work. So the second that something falls apart, and most things that are efficient have very few redundancy.
Right.
Because in order to be efficient, you don't have the capacity for those redundancies. Like you're trying to push everything to the spectrum of its best possible, output. And so in this case, it's the same thing, right? Like the more efficient you get, here we are now with it. Okay, one thing fucks up, it fucks up everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say that if you want like that video that Jay's 2 cents that's on that same link is great at explaining everything involving all the difference between even all the different style GPUs.
Mm-hmm.
For those who need more information.
What's that?
I'm just talking. You keep going, Mark. Come on.
No, so like the individual press releases anyway are in the from the individual companies are in the article anyway. If you want to read through them, some of them are kind of interesting as far as how they're responding to it. MSI is very firm in saying we're standing behind our decisions for the 3000 series catalog, which consists of gaming and Ventus models. They use a mixed capacitor grouping, of course, so they don't really have these problems. But these companies are all very much standing behind what they're doing, I guess, to some extent, because they have to. You got to stand behind the product that you make. Otherwise, you got to do the same thing that EVGA did and spend an entire week of R&D just trying to figure out how in hell this is actually causing the problem and what kind of array works for the type of setup you're going with. Gigabyte actually
they caught that early.
Yeah, like Gigabyte actually defended their decision to work with POSCAP capacitors in the sense that, and maybe they're tossing these out in the sense that they're using higher capacity capacitors that may have a better filtering property to them. But they're all, literally every company's also said, particularly in line, and Gigabyte said this too, of we followed, NVIDIA's guidelines on, like what defines this card, of course, well, the part of that is that, NVIDIA also may not know what kind of parts you're going to replace it with until that happens, or what kind of tolerances you're going to throw in. Not to mention you as the integrator here, the board integrator, are responsible for any kind of changes that need to be made to both meet the spec and push the limit of whatever you're trying to do with it and build out the hardware correctly to support that. If you want to push, like 25 megahertz out of your cores on the processor, then you need to make sure your capacitors can handle it. And the problem is that I don't understand how every company like that use nothing but POSCAPs out of this can't seem to find this, or so it couldn't seem to figure this out. So, because EVGA's response was, yeah, we didn't see this in initial, I guess normal testing environment for them, whatever, or what do they say here? During our mass production QC testing, we discovered a full 6 POSCAP solution cannot pass the real world application testing. How did you find that out during mass production QC? How did you not find that during board QC? Yeah, like you should have done that like on your first board that comes out printed. I feel like you should have had that figured out to some extent, or at least discovered the problem by that point.
I do find this fascinating because this is definitely a day where I learned something new, which was, I always assumed that NVIDIA manufactured all of the cards and sent them out, but that's not the case.
Did too.
They have the specifications that they send out to the manufacturers. The manufacturers put their own spin on it.
Right. The Founders Editions cards have always been, and I forget what AMD calls theirs, but there's always been a specific line that NVIDIA and AMD releases themselves to compete in the space anyway. And they're generally called, like NVIDIA always calls theirs Founders Editions. And up until literally this generation, the Founders Edition, or I'd say last generation, the Founders Editions cards have all been utter crap. More in the sense that their cooling is just awful. Clock speeds are clock speeds. They always meet their base requirements, whatever the boards are going to be. And buying from a third part or a second party integrator is always going to be a better card from a performance perspective because they're going to push the clock speeds higher than they normally would be. They may have a higher core count, whatever it is. They're going to base it off the reference design and push a limit. And that's kind of the point.
I think you just put a bird on it. It makes it a lot cooler. Birds are cool.
Cacaw.
See, there you go.
Did I just make this podcast cooler?
Yes, nice. You did.
Nice.
You need to peek next.
No, so it's interesting to see. I guess where like there some companies are talking about issuing replacements. Like Zotac actually put out a tweet specifically saying, "Hey, fill out this form if you have this problem. We're looking to figure this out." My favorite part is the second half of that tweet that says, "Meanwhile, for those who had purchased any Zotac Gaming RTX 30 series GPU, we will send you a box of Mooncake by Suncycle Malaysia. Makan Mooncake and relax, Sinya."
That was really cool.
I do find this interesting.
Hashtag we are sorry.
I do find this interesting because if most manufacturers follow that route, right, of like, hey, if you're having this, I feel like there's a way to really put scalpers in a vice in this situation where if you could provide proof of having this issue, but the problem is most companies don't want to go down that whole validation route.
Yeah.
They can.
No, I mean, you're going to have a serial number on the back of yours that determines what part of the line it was built in.
Yeah.
And that serial number should give you the ability to just straight up return the product and get a new one. Now, if, as far as scalpers are concerned, if the product supply stays in the same stranglehold that it is in right now, then they may get the replacements before we ever get stock back, in warehouse shelves, which is going to still continue to be a problem. Now, I say a problem in the sense that those people are going to continue to hang on to those cards and then try to turn them out, on eBay. Now, if you just be patient and don't decide to spend $1,500 on a card that's worth $600, then you're fine. But if you're that impatient, then you don't need to buy them up,
I just also feel like we have a problem right now where there are so many issues when it comes to how we handle these, right? We saw it literally with PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X/S, and now the NVIDIA graphics cards of scalpers using bots and all kinds of other dastardly means.
I mean, you're forgetting the OG scalpers of this year, toilet paper.
Yeah, toilet paper being another one. Now, it doesn't say I can't buy as much as I fucking want. Shut up.
I watched that lady buy all the boxes of napkins, toilet paper, paper towels. I'm like, what, you gonna wipe your ass with all this?
Just awful.
If you have to, I guess.
But I feel like this would be a wonderful case for manufacturers to be like, okay, you're having that problem. If they could come up with a validation that makes sense. The problem is that it's not efficient, right? Again, who wants to go through that?
Well,
PlayStation did?
the problem or the thing is that based on, again, that serial number, they're immediately going to say, yeah, okay, you've got this hardware defect or you don't, Now, the other thing that could flip heads here, Zotac's trying to get everyone to fill out forms, but no one's saying actually that they're going to go for recalls yet.
Okay.
So the other thing too is, again, the second article I linked anyway, this sort of leads into the follow-up, is that NVIDIA did release 456.55 of its driver version that does fix this problem. And what it seems to do is it doesn't directly do this, but I guess it in its own manner or reduces the boost clock capability of the third-party cards that are having this problem.
Yeah, it keeps them under 2,000 megahertz.
Right. To the point that actually, the editor, Brad Chacos from PC World, was talking specifically about the fact that he couldn't even see 2,000 megahertz come back in again. Whenever he was in a heavy scene on Horizon Zero Dawn, which was sort of the reference that he was using anyway. They're in the the test scene, I guess, that you use in Horizon Zero, or the benchmark scene in Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a part where the camera pans through a crowd, and that crowd scene is usually what does it, because that's generally when the card consistently clocks itself to 20-25 megahertz and immediately goes into a driver fault and crashes the game out.
Gotcha.
Because he even talks about going into the Windows system logs, and
literally watch the crash happen.
Identifying the display warning from the driver that says, "Yep, had to kill this program." There was an instability in the hardware or something like that, and as soon as it recovers, it recovers. It was pretty quick. So, it protected the rest of the system from crashing, which is nice. But it, of course, still means that there is a hardware issue that's happening with those cards. So, the thing is that at this point, if 456.55 actually solves this problem and you can still use the cards, maybe not to the full spec listed, they may still stick with this
spec. It's just not able to overclock.
Well, let me find the number specifically that he was using, because I don't remember.
When I was told, people were like, "Well, technically, it's doing what it said it's going to do. You're just not able to get the overclock that you wanted."
Well, so boost clock is a stated number too. Boost clock is a stated number too. So if you're not able to hit boost clock, I mean, technically it's still false advertising. So maybe, so I'd be interested to see if the manufacturers decide to say, screw it, we can meet base numbers, with the new driver version and maybe boost them up a little bit, but not quite to the full boost clock capability that we listed. And we don't have to do a full recall of all the products we've sold up to this point that are using nothing but pause caps if they have the instability.
I would just say you can have a refund if you want, and then
at a certain point, they can just change their manufacturing up to use 2 MLCCs like everyone else is doing, or 20 technically MLCC capacitors like everyone else is doing. I don't see why they would be enticed enough to recall the product.
I agree, especially if they say, we'll give you a full refund if you wish. If not, the new details are listed below.
I don't think they'll even go so far as to say we'll give you a refund if you want. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have 30 days from date of purchase to return it generally to wherever the hell you bought it from. You can go back to Best Buy and say, hey, this isn't meeting my expectations. They'll take it right back.
Yep.
It's not a big deal for them.
I'm knocking on wood right now that PS5 comes in, no issues. We're ready to rock day one.
We have learned very well in this generation that early adopters do not do well.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing though. With all of these problems, with the fact that the cards are not available, and the fact that even if I wanted to buy one right now, I couldn't, and all the issues that are happening, AMD's next generation graphics cards are literally right around the corner. The announcement is supposed to be in October. So
God
why
knows they're going to be banking on this?
Those
Why
are
not
your boys,
wait?
Right?
What's that?
Those are your boys, right?
Not from a graphics card perspective. I haven't had an AMD GPU in a computer of mine since 2013.
September 08.
08.
Yeah. No, I've run nothing but NVIDIA since that point. I was all ATI and AMD before that, but I haven't seen anything really come out of AMD yet that's really been worth it. NVIDIA is really pushing the ray tracing, dedicated computation hard.
This is really
yourself.
Interesting while
Of
we're
course
in
I
the
did.
middle of the podcast.
So NVIDIA has really pushed the ray tracing the ray tracing dedicated chips hard, and has been pretty successful at doing so because it's actually been beneficial for developers and pushing the AI platform very hard. And AMD is very, very slow at this point to follow suit. So I'd be interested to see if the 6000 or the RX 6000 series that's supposed to be announced next month is worth it.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. And I'm going to be holding out for probably another month to see if those start flying off shelves too. So
Yeah.
They will. But please let us know what your thoughts are on the NVIDIA debacle. 3080, man. What happened with you? You were the chosen one,
Up
as
here.
the memesters would say.
up here and
They
then
would
down
say
here and then just down here.
Anakin and Judd Law, right? I don't know, remember. Please let us know in the comments below. But now it's time to move on to Handsome John's very own topic. What are we talking about with VR? PlayStation? What's happening?
Well, we've talked about how we really want new controllers with the VR and how, we want to see the PlayStation VR move forward. And there are some patents found by Let's Go Digital on an IGN article that states that might be coming here soon. Maybe, maybe not. But the new PSVR looks like it's going to follow the Oculus and Steam. Oh, what's that called?
The
Index. Oh
Index,
my God, the
thank
Valve
you.
Index. It's the Valve Index. You
Valve
went
Index.
Steam name, and my brain went nothing.
Man.
Not named anything.
where you have the controller fitting in your hand and you're able to use your fingers and for the tracking and whatnot, which I think is really cool.
It's inside out tracking is I think the actual
The terminology that
terminology.
they used in this. I don't know if that's actually what it is.
you mean like reading the little people that control my motions in my head?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Just like
determining
in
my
Fall
finger
Guys.
movement based on them. Okay, all right, yeah, that's neat.
Which is why inverted people are technically correct because you push up on the joystick, the head moves down. But
Yeah.
anyways, move on.
I mean, they're talking about a new headset, new controllers, which is unfortunate. I wish that we could still use the new controllers with the old headset if possible. That would be great for a cost perspective, but we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you and I've had this discussion, right? Like Sony's PlayStation VR came out. It was nice. It was $400, cheapest headset out there to play VR. And arguably, they've done a decent enough job. I think they have a couple of their own bangers. Like Iron Man VR, I don't think hit as hard as people wanted to, but it's still a really cool game. Astrobot's fantastic. And then they have a
But
lot
really,
of like
the third-party developers are really what stole the show on that one.
Yes,
I mean,
Super Hot,
Moss, Super Hot, yeah.
Beat Saber.
Oh God, Beat Saber, yeah, that was a great game.
Beat
Spark,
Saber.
which I still stand by, is a fantastic game.
Spark. Oh man, if you want to lose some weight, play Spark. Oh my God,
John, we should play Spark.
we should do a video on that because let me tell you, we're gonna be naked by the end of it because we're gonna be sweating through everything.
I don't think I don't think that's a reason to get naked, but okay.
I think so. Trust me.
Man, it gets warm.
When you can't see anything but the game, you have no choice but to take your clothes off. That's how that works.
I don't think I'll be seeing anything but the naked, unfortunately. Oh no, please stop.
The good news is you won't have to worry about Sony being able to see you because this new headset model shows that it doesn't have a camera, an external camera to track your movements.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of, you don't have to worry about them seeing you naked. So I think that's actually kind of a cool thing because some of the negatives that we've always talked about was the camera setup along with the headset and then of course the cumbersome controllers. It was like everything was just like piecemeal together and it felt that way. And it was also really hard to manage. Whereas this, I feel like it's going to be a lot easier to pick up and go.
Yeah, the controllers specifically were definitely like, hey, we have these excess million fucking move controllers. Let's just put.
We have to figure out what to do with these.
But I definitely think that Sony's headset was very intricately designed for their original release, right? Like they wanted to make the price point to be the early adopters, to be the easy access. That's just not the case anymore. I mean, Quest 2 comes out next month at $300 with no wires. A Facebook account is required. That's about the biggest hassle you have.
Remember, it's not the Oculus Quest. It's the Facebook Quest.
It's the Facebook Quest. Yes. That sounds like we're giving them way too much like hype. Like, oh, you're going on a Facebook Quest. No, it's the VR headset that Facebook owns now. But like they have to either become more hardcore in order to make it worth the purchase, right? If I'm going to play a PlayStation VR game, it needs to be on the level of 1080p or higher where I have the nice visuals in the headset, or I need it so that I don't have a PlayStation 5 at all and I could just put on a headset. Like they have to kind of figure that out. Yeah,
I mean, we've seen the range at which headsets go for, where we had the Valve Index, it was priced at $1,000.
$1,000. Still is, I think.
And then you have the Oculus levels are ranged anywhere between about 200 to 400.
300 to 500, if I remember correctly.
300, 500.
But I mean, in my opinion, though, the Index is the next generation of that, the next generational leap of 3D headset, or I'm sorry, VR headsets like that. Where no sensors in a room,
do that and make
cameras
cheaper.
only. Yeah.
So they're gonna have to make it a price point that's not twice as much as the system that's running it.
Yeah.
So you can buy a headset for $500. You can buy a base station for $150. You can buy the controllers for $280. You can buy the headset plus controllers for $750, and the entire VR Index kit, which is 2 controllers, 1 headset, 2 base stations, $1,000.
Yeah. Which, if you really like VR and you have the PC to handle everything that's going on, then absolutely freaking do it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great. I think that with this new design, the patent that was put in that Let's Go Digital found makes a lot of sense. It has a joystick, which is super great, which is what I wish they would have done to begin with.
It has 2 joysticks.
And with the hands-free model with the finger tracking, or as you call it, the inside out, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be that to me is the future. That's where Index really pointed out, like, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to go. Look what we can do with it with Half-Life Alyx. I think that really was a pinnacle in the VR game industry.
100%.
And I hope to see more innovation in it, but we're not going to see it unless we can get a large amount of people who can buy these games that allow these developers to want to make these games. So I'm hoping that PlayStation does do an update with their VR, but I'm also kind of sad to look at my VR and say, why couldn't we just do an update with this at the same time? But
I think the hardware, unfortunately, is just too out of date. Like if I remember, the headset doesn't even do 720p.
I think that was its range was to 720p.
Yeah, I think it's the highest it was capable of. And again, intentional, right? Like they wanted to be the cheapest headset on the market, but they have to differ themselves in some other. I'm really curious, John and Mark. What are your predictions here for the next headset to release? Because I don't think we're getting just controllers. I think we're getting a brand new VR. We got a console launch this year in November.
I think they're going to release it with the console. No, I'm just kidding.
I was about to say,
I think you're going to be sorely mistaken, my friend. I'll bet you a pizza for that one. That's for sure.
We're going to have a
sausage
pretty
and
close
mushrooms.
time
My
with this
preference.
Horizon Zero Dawn one, though.
Ooh, I can't wait.
I would say probably 2 years from now. I think we'll see a launch of a new VR console, because I want to see what the people can do with VR with the original headsets in this PS5, because it very well may be that I don't feel the need to do that. So they don't want to wait too long to let people figure out how to really meld the old headset with the PS5 and not give them a reason to want to upgrade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my fear is that Sony, we talked about this before, Sony goes the same way they go with a lot of their interesting projects that have prospect, and they're like, we're not going to do anything with it, Vita being one of them.
Yeah, and again, that's the whole reason why I didn't want to adopt it to begin with, because I'm like, this just smells like a Vita.
Well, I would argue, me personally, I've gotten out enough entertainment to validate the purchase. Is it the number one gaming thing I do? No, but I had some cool stuff. Like Boss is great, super. We went over them. We've gone over the hits. But I agree. I think 2022. I think it'll be closer to a year and a half, personally. Mostly because they're gonna get that user base up. Once that happens, they'll be able to launch the VR.
Release?
A VR.
Yeah,
like a new VR. Because I think they're
summer VR release, because they're gonna a year and a half from now would be in the summer.
Yeah, here, let me do a little. I believe what they're gonna want is.
Hey Mark, can I use your office to Google myself?
How else you gonna do it?
Right.
So October 13th, 2016 is when the VR headset released. That is 4 years old. Holy crap. It'll be 4 years old here soon. I didn't even think about that. So I do believe that okay. Well, with this further information, John, I think you're closer on the money here. 2 years, 2022 in the fall, releasing it. Because one, it's going to push individuals to want to buy a PS5. You have this headset, you have this other peripheral. That would be the goal. You're still hopefully selling under $1,000, which means you're not matching the Valve Index, but you're still, something that's worthwhile going into.
Here's the thing that scares me. They're going to release this in 2022, and then they're going to have to make it backwards compatible with the PS4. What is that going to do for developers?
No way.
They never will. They never will.
I think they'll probably build out the headset based on the graphical capabilities of the PS5, and at this point, I think they're trying
PS5 only via VR.
Yeah, the reason is like the graphic performance, the graphic capabilities of the PS5 completely outweigh what the hardware spec would be even worth on a PS4, to the point that they may as well just say, we want you to buy a PS5 anyway.
Yeah,
just buy a PS5 and buy the new headset.
If this were launching this year or even into next year, that would be my fear as well. But I think if you put yourself 2 years out, like every publisher's,
space, right?
Every publisher's doing the same fucking game, right? Where they're like, oh, we're gonna release titles on PS5, Xbox Series X, and also last gen for the next 8 months, and then after that, next fall, let's go. No, you only get this newest generation. Last gen, we're done with. Get out of here. Minus Madden, Call of Duty, and Just Dance.
Man, these companies they're cutthroat. They're just so angry.
I know. They're slamming fists on the table. They're moving around Funko Pops of Batman and Joker who are trying to kiss. It's really romantic.
Oh, wow. Okay. Weird tangent.
Come here, big boy.
No, I think 20...
Stick on me.
Where's the trigger?
Oh, I got some makeup on your cape.
But I think 2022 sounds right. I would love to see what Sony has to come to bat with it. They're bad, like they swear they're doubling down and that VR will be a thing. So hopefully we will be able to.
That's more than they did for the Vita.
Yep.
Please let us know what you think about PlayStation VR and the patent for the new controllers in the comments floating directly in front of Mark. You didn't get to make a comment about the last thing, so you can make comments floating directly above my heart because I was rude to you and broke my heart. And you,
damn you!
He doesn't have feelings. Don't let him fool you.
No feelings whatsoever. Time to move on to my topic of the show, the important one. We all know this. It turns out that Amazon is releasing their own game streaming service.
And I'll say this again. No, move on.
A lunatic.
Oh my gosh.
It is known as Luna. So they announced this past week, and Luna is a very interesting service, in my own opinion, for multiple reasons. So this will rival Google Stadia and xCloud. It is going to have a $5.99 a month subscription fee. So it's very cheap comparatively. You would get access to a plethora of games, including current games that are out. Ukulele, Impossible Lair. They talked about a couple of other games, including Metro.
Resident Evil 7.
Resident Evil 7. Amazon is stating that they don't want to make a service that favors their first party. Their goal is to make a service that makes games accessible. So
they're trying to make that barrier of entry super low.
Correct. $5.99. You're able to play this on your of course your PC or whatever your computer is. They're also allowing this on iOS, not Android, which is interesting. I believe they're going to make an Android app. They haven't announced that yet. They said it'll come eventually, but they're working on it.
So how are they going to do that when Apple's not allowing game streaming services on their platform?
Safari integration. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting.
I said it up front.
Yeah. They're also going to offer multiple channels. So Ubisoft is going to have their very own channel, which will be publisher-centric. However, channels won't always be publisher-centric, and there's no confirmation yet if you have to subscribe at a higher rate to get a certain number of channels. So there's still some confusion on how all this will work. They also announced a controller which looks very suspiciously like an amalgamation of all controllers, which we see with like
Stadia.
Roku.
And
Stadia.
the long
I was gonna
the PS5.
It looks like an Xbox version of the Stadia controller.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I can see that.
But the biggest thing, Mark, I wanted to point out to you specifically is that the way these games work is that they sit on AWS servers in the Windows format. So unlike Google Stadia, which requires developers to develop a game specifically for the Stadia framework, this is just, if you have a game that runs on a Windows PC, you just put it in the server and we'll make sure it's
right.
That's
so
Amazon's promise.
That was the smart way to do it. Yes,
well, so the benefit there, of course, this almost goes more along the lines of GeForce Now.
Yeah.
So GeForce Now used Windows-based as well, and the benefit for there was that they give you a Steam big picture version for you to launch your games out of. Now, I didn't see this anywhere about how they were handling this. Maybe there's not enough information out. Is this supposed to be similar to GeForce Now, where you actually like launch Steam and play existing games that you have, or do you have to purchase games new through the platform?
There's no purchase of a game; it's a subscription.
You just play anything that's there. Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's the Netflix.
And
fancy.
they're also integrating Twitch, and the integration will work both ways. So if you're on Twitch and you're watching someone play a game, and it's a game you have an interest in, and it's on Luna, you can just launch it from Twitch, and vice versa. If you're on Luna and you want to watch somebody play, you can watch them.
Well, the other benefit too of that is, the entirety of the Twitch platform is based on AWS now that it's owned by Amazon. So if you wanted to live stream, for example, if you're a live streamer and you're playing a game on Luna, for example, that's a direct streaming capability. You don't have to probably go through any weird integrations like you would with Stadia or something else to try to figure out how to stream that.
100%.
Now,
for the Ubisoft channel, for instance, you have to pay more money for that. They said that you were going to.
We don't know yet,
that, but we don't know what the price is.
Yeah, see, I don't know how they're going to sustain that.
They did not confirm that you have to pay for extra channels. We don't know. They just said that they're making other channels. So
I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure they said that up front.
I'm looking at the IGN article is the one I'm looking at right now, which is everything we know about Luna.
It sounds like they're going for the Hulu approach of game streaming.
I agree.
You can pay for other channels to get access to other subscription services for other games available, but you have the base set of free content that's available to you on the base subscription.
Which, I mean, if you're thinking about it, is not a bad system, right? We talk about a lot about Game Pass in its own set of hurdles when it comes to actual longevity, when you're supporting different developers. Like Microsoft has the purse strings and the coffers to sit there and just throw money at it, but ultimately, are they really making money? Are these devs making money? Probably not off of the amount of it's hard to say. We don't know. I'm making my own assumption.
Here was the thing. If you really wanted to see, this is where I still promoted GeForce Now. Like I still want to promote GeForce Now 1,000 times over, more than as much as Stadia offers new benefits for game developers. One, they're not implemented yet, so nobody can really use them yet.
Yeah.
Two, you're not benefiting the customer at all, and it really fell off the wagon because of that. I think GeForce Now is sort of still the ultimate play of you buy games in the traditional fashion, developers build games in the traditional fashion, and you play them in the traditional fashion on whatever device you want to, with whatever controller you want to.
I agree.
Yeah.
I still think
for those who are just, I'm not an avid gamer, but I'll pay $6 for a month because I'm in the mood to play this one game. Cool. That's who that's gonna fit.
Yeah, I mean, like GeForce Now was a great way of like being who you are already as a PC gamer, or because they don't have console titles, so there's really no way for them to do that there.
No console manufacturer is allowing a second storefront on.
Right.
And why would they, for God's sakes? It says on here, Amazon confirmed that Ubisoft channel will require a separate subscription.
Okay.
And that other channels are being planned for the
Well, and that makes sense. Ubisoft has been the first company to pull their games from pretty much every other cloud-based platform that's been out there at this point. So,
dude, Ubisoft doesn't care where you want to put their games. I just hear Odyssey being thrown on Stadia. It's put on every single console. It's getting a PC release. Blah blah blah.
Well, Ubisoft pulled straight up out of GeForce Now because of some contractual issue, I guess, that they ran into. But
they weren't the only publisher that had issues with GeForce Now, unfortunately.
Maybe I don't understand, I guess, what the behind the closed doors talk for, but
I'm not entirely sure either.
So I see this Hulu approach as a good way to go, a good way to shake the industry. But the problem is, I think in the long run, the developers are going to be the ones that have to take the hit.
Agreed.
The developers and the publishers are going to have to be the ones to take the hit here, and I don't think you're going to get enough support to make that work. Ubisoft, sure, whatever. They're willing to try pretty much anything at this point. I don't think you'll see Microsoft and their newly acquired development, Titan, Bethesda, any other subsidiary that they've just purchased really jumping onto that platform. No matter how independent they are, but like that is not something that Bethesda would have done regardless.
Well, and I think back on this a lot because we've made the comparison on the show. We're not the unique, and many people make it online about like to Hulu to Netflix to whatever. But I think the difference is when you look at the medium, right, of video games compared to television and film. The major difference is that if you look at films from the 1980s, they're hokey, they're campy, they're not clear 4K distinction, but they're watchable, and most people would be willing to watch that. If you look at games from the 80s, minus the classics, Mario and all that, there's a lot of people who just refuse to. Games from the 90s suffer even further because of the fact they jump from 2D to 3D with the polygons, like the really terrible polygons that I love. I adore it. PS1 era, easily one of my favorite generations, hands down. But there's so many people who just regularly will not play those blocky polygonal games.
Right.
So it's not like Ubisoft or Capcom or Square Enix can go back and say, hey, we're gonna grab Resident Evil 1, the original Resident Evil, we're going to put it on your cloud streaming service because that already sold. We already made our money off of that. That's a cheap sell because nobody will fucking play it.
Yeah.
Like you're at a complete disadvantage. Whereas anyone from, Viacom can go, hey, well, Friends was released in the 90s. it is a classic. No, and nobody really cares about some of the misogynistic or sexist stuff. We'll just put it on and everybody will watch it no matter where it goes. Like,
Right.
you have such another barrier that I think a lot of people don't think about. So I'm really curious to see where Amazon does try to get around these problems, because you're right. Like, the devs themselves or Amazon has to suffer. Amazon has to pay a hefty pocket, which they have pockets. I'm not concerned about them as a company.
Deep ass pockets.
But, in
Never-ending
that same
pockets.
regard, like, how do you make sure that this is efficient for people to pick up on? Because Amazon's not aiming for the core gamer. They're more aiming for someone in between the casual and core.
Right.
Because a core gamer is not going to stream a game on a streaming service. They have a PC to play it with Steam or Epic Game Store, or they're using a console.
And I think that's the problem you're going to run into now with, I guess, trying to focus on anything past the casual gamer. Casual gamers now have their phones generally that they play on, as the most common interface. Some of them have, consoles like Nintendo's, like Switches in particular, being the easiest one to jump to. A lot of people may have Vitas, that they're still rocking, but
should. Thank you, Mark. That was.
I figured I'd throw you guys a bone on that one. That was the nicest thing I think
you've done on this show, I think, ever.
You guys.
Oh!
No, but
just had to say it.
No, but like they're trying to go with the portable. They're trying to go with the handheld. They're trying to go with the cheap. They're trying to go with the easy because they don't really want to invest $500, or $400, whatever in a console, or spend over $1,000 on a PC, to really build out and be a hardcore or a core gamer. But most of the core gamers and the hardcore gamers, the real target market, the real moneymaker for a lot of people, you're not going to get those people on board because they already have the equipment in place. What is the point of me going to a streaming service that hitches or has quality degradation when I could just have great quality, have minimal network interface that's much better for an experience when I've already spent this money? So, like that's the wrong way to target that. For casual gamers, sure. As long as you have a list of casual games that are on the system and it's much more easily playable on a television or your phone or whatever.
Yeah, you can use
and that's fine.
Fire devices. Support this.
So to me, that's a giant failure on their part. To me, don't get me wrong. A ton of people have Fire TVs, but I feel like you have too many performance problems with Fire Sticks in particular that you're already going to run into problems.
I said this was to help with the latency issue, much like the Google Chrome does.
The controller,
but Fire TVs still, they're just not great quality devices themselves offhand.
Trust me, I'm getting ready to throw mine out through the fucking window because I have one downstairs that I use to go to bed every night, and it is god awful.
Replace your entire house's set with Chromecasts. Like, to put it this way, like Roku TV has probably been the best like menu system integration of a television I've seen yet. And like TCLs have them built in, automatic, like from the rip. But we still have a Chromecast on the Roku television in the bedroom now. Like, I don't want to deal with, like finding the remote to then go through a menu system. I could just open the app straight on my phone. I want to play on this television and I'm done, like that's the easiest method. And unless Amazon, I think, jumps on the boat, because Chromecast integration capabilities are free and available for anyone to integrate. They learned this with Prime Video, that a ton of people that suddenly was available to a lot more people if it's available on a Chromecast. I didn't watch things on Prime Video unless it was on Chromecast, because half the time I don't want to sit in front of my desktop or sit in front of my phone to watch something, because that's the only way I can watch it is on those two platforms, since I don't buy Fire TVs, since I don't agree with, or I don't like the product. So
just jailbreak it.
What?
Even jailbreaking it, it's awful.
No, the problem is the hardware performance was bad.
Yeah, hardware performance is real bad.
Like, they wanted to build a device that competes with Chromecast at the $35 price point, and they really just can't do that with a remote and an integration system and menus and the whole deal, and make it performant at the same time. It's just not how it works.
I agree. I also think that there's an interesting wrinkle here of, without being on the major consoles. I know PC is its own space, but without being on the major consoles, I really don't know how you're going to bring people in. It's the same issue I see with Stadia, right? Like if any, again, like you said, if anybody's on a PC, they've built a PC. Like nobody's very few people are gaming in the way that, John and I bought gaming laptops, right? Like most people are building their own towers so that they can support and play the games in the way that they want to. And very few people are going for Stadia or for Luna in this. So I'm not really sure how this one.
I think they see the trend of people wanting to go like, I don't have to, so why go through with it?
Right.
Yeah. And eventually that will overtake the market, because if they can get it into a stable enough point with enough games, good games that people want to play on a regular basis, especially with all these games that are going into a different model, a lengthier, longer timeline model, the Fortnite model, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that you will eventually see people going, I don't need to buy a PC, and that generation is coming up. And they're going to say, why put all the money through when I could just literally stream it?
I mean, yes and no. I think part of it,
consoles for the special games I like.
I think part of the problem is if you don't have a successful platform that's already available, that's there and ready to go, that doesn't already seem cool to the generation before it, I don't think that the next generation coming in is going to set that trend by themselves.
It'll take time. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be readily adopted.
And see that's the thing. Like from the rip, I said that Google and Stadia were probably the best bet for this.
Yeah.
Google has the technology to make this work. They have the engineers to make this work if they really want to. But I think the biggest problem that you're always going to run into with a streaming service, no matter what, is always going to be the ISP.
Yeah.
ISPs are
no, you're right.
Awful.
Lowest common denominator.
Our ISPs are awful. AT&T, Spectrum, Verizon.
Don't you talk shit about AT&T.
Cox Communications, everyone. Get your shit together. Because the problem is you guys have been trying to run at the lowest cost. You're trying to run the tightest business model you possibly can when you have everyone else in a stranglehold because they have to have internet service for the majority of things that they do. Like if I don't have internet at the house, I can't work. Like, Brent, 100%. You're in the same situation.
100%.
We have to have it, it's not just a luxury item anymore. And the problem is that they refuse to invest in the future of that business or of that technology to really make it reliable enough for even something as complex as a streaming service for comfort purposes or for entertainment purposes is even, I think, viable at this point.
Well, and I also think that their goal wouldn't be to knock off the hardcore PC. It would be more to try and negotiate with parents of an easier console experience. Modes here where, hey, we've got this $30 thing and we could do it. But again, you still deal with latency, you still would deal with all the options, and you're talking about $50 for a controller. You're not going to have one controller. You're going to need two, so that's $100. At that point in time, you might as well double give them a Switch because they can do whatever the hell they want. Yeah, plus whatever dongle you have it.
That was still cheaper than I think I paid for the Stadia Founders Edition. Come to think of it,
the Founders Edition was $129.
Yeah,
it was $130 basically. But my point is, if you're paying anywhere near $100 for this within a year, you might as well go with a Switch.
Yeah.
You're going to be better off.
Not necessarily. It really depends on the games. I mean, with the type of games that they would have access to, I think that for your money, I don't think it's a bad value. It's just I need more on what's going to be on this console, what's in it for the future. Like, you're not giving me any prospects. You're just telling me what you're going to have up front, and so far it's not a whole lot. And to be honest, you're telling me that you have a brand new service and you don't even know what games are going to be on here. Like, if you're going to pull a Stadia, at least do it slightly better.
Well, we'll see. You can sign up for the beta now. I believe John and I have already signed up for it. So there is a link within the IGN articles that we have in our Google Doc in the description, floating directly above me in the green light to my right. It looks on the left on the video. I know.
I'll leave the two of you to be the SMEs on this one. So
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to check it out. Again, for just understanding, John, don't touch my name, okay? Don't touch my name. That's right. We're in the middle of recording. Nobody lasts this long anyways. I'll fucking call you out right now. Please let us know what your thoughts are on Luna and whether or not you are going to dive into it. If you'd like our own hands-on, maybe we'll do a video. We'll find out. We still have a Splunky 2 video that needs to be edited, but I can't give Mark too much. So we're time to move on
True.
to what we like to call last call.
Last call!
You don't have
man,
to
that was
go
bad.
home, but you definitely can't stay here. Of course, we are in our own quarantine bunkers with our lights. Look at our lights. We got lights.
Ooh.
I know Mark's had lights forever, but we have lights now too. It's very nice. Drinking our own various drinks. I have my tiki mug full of a nice Rain vodka tonic and some Slain whiskey I'm slowly sipping on. What about
Ooh.
you, dispatcher?
Schfancy. So I've had this. I've had this on this podcast before, but I am drinking some 1712 bourbon, distilled here in North Carolina, in my hometown, Conover, just outside of Hickory. Yeah. My dad introduced this to me, or I guess identified it to me that it was actually distilled out in a distillery in Conover. I had no idea that there was a whiskey that came out of there, but that's actually kind of neat.
Well, the next time you come over for a dinner, you got to bring it over so we can try some.
Yeah.
I don't know if this bottle survives that long, you know.
Ooh. What about you, John?
Angel's Envy rye.
Oh yeah, I haven't been able to try it yet or find it yet, so I've been wanting to try
really?
it.
I got a bunch over here. I'll grab a bottle for you. Anyway,
Boy,
I am drinking super tea.
What is wrong with you?
What?
I drink a lot less. I feel like drinking
Super tea drinking.
You're goddamn Kepley over here. Jeez, ooh, I'm drinking super tea.
Of course,
we have
supportive and John.
No,
we're glad that
you have to be an
you're
alcoholic.
able to control yourself.
Okay, do you
Why'd
know how
drink so much last night?
See, this is you got to get to the alcoholism level, of I name my servers after the alcohol that I enjoy. In fact, one of them is named Angel after Angel's Envy. That's how much I like it.
I can't. I'm just trying to be nice to my body. Apparently, my body's telling me I'm getting old, Mark. Okay, and you'll understand when you get in your 30s.
Why'd you drink so much last night?
I just was sitting there sipping, and I went through like 3 glasses, and I was like, "Oh, too much."
We were on the phone for 2 hours. You drank the entire time.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I couldn't watch my show, so I just sat there and talked to you and drank.
I just want to know that's
good
how
to
these
know
two.
That I drive you to drinking.
I just want to know that's how these two spent their Monday nights. Is they're on the phone with each other drinking.
If you would have noticed, my entire conversation got more emotional towards the end.
Virtually holding hands. Of course, I do have a weekly reading, which is about how the devs revived Among Us. If you're not aware, Among Us is the new hot thing along with Fall Guys.
Fungus?
You should definitely check it out. It is free on mobile, and it costs $15 on PC.
20.
There you go. Also, I have some cool ass which is the original 2 Amnesia games are now open source. I love it when devs do this, where they're like, hey, we have a game, people like it, it's now available, you can look at the source code and just do whatever you want with it. And so the Amnesia games, Dark Descent and Machine for Pigs, were really well known for bringing back the kind of indie horror vibe. They're 3D exploration games that are very, very creepy. You can check out the source code for free on your own laptop. So check it out. That was really cool.
That's cool.
Finally, question of the week is, what's your favorite smell?
Damn it, John. For those of you who, aren't going to be able to see the doc because Brent just wiped this out, John decided to tell us that his favorite smell is WAP. I'll let you figure out the acronym of WAP if you don't already know what it stands for.
Yeah, I gotta stick your nose in it and take a whiff. No, my favorite smell when it comes to most things, most of the time, I would say it's food. But there is a particular thing about gas that I really like. I love going to the gas station, and I like the smell of gasoline.
I mean, I actually don't disagree with you there.
It's not. It's not something I'm like, like just going to the gas hose and just like taking a whiff or anything. But like when I'm sitting there like filling up the lawnmower, I'm like, I don't dislike that at all.
You were the marker sniffer in elementary school, weren't you?
You best believe it.
Yeah. I was so happy when they came out with the flavored ones.
No, I get it. That chemical smell is actually it's not bad. Like fresh cut lawn almost is too. Is just one of those weird smells too. That's like, oh yeah.
The sulfur from a lit match. Oh man, so cool.
Okay, that's not what I would have gone with.
Interesting, very vitriolic smells.
Well, I usually compare it to something like the striking of a cigar.
Okay.
So like it's associated with a good memory.
What about you, Mark? As you take a big swig.
I actually have mine here in front of me because this is easily one of my favorite smells. So I love, for people who don't know, I love White Barn candles.
Yeah, you do.
What?
White Barn candles.
Barn. Okay.
White Barn is
White House. White House.
White Barn is a Bath and Body Works company or brand of theirs, and they have a scent called Mahogany Teakwood.
Ooh, it's so good.
It's very musky, but it's so good.
Yeah, that's like I know what you're talking. Mom brought one home, and I almost stole that shit.
So they have the Mahogany Teakwood candles, and they apparently had people enjoy them so much that they decided to make a high intensity version specifically of that line of candles. So they have a high intensity of like 2 or 3 different types of their scents that they keep around year round. And I enjoy this so much that I had it as a scent in my car. I have a candle here, and I think I have another candle downstairs of it. Every time I go into a White Barn, I pick up the car set. I pick up candles of it. It's always one of my go-to scents, and I enjoy it thoroughly.
I don't blame you. Awesome.
That's really cool.
There is nothing like the smell of fresh cut cedar.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I do enjoy that.
I think whenever my mom was having her house built, a lot of the exterior components on her deck are cedar. The posts are cedar. The wrapping for the softening is all cedar. It's so good. It was so good. So,
I mean, a little weird on the weird side, but I work with computer boards sometimes. And after a computer board's been running for a few minutes and I take it off because I'm doing something, I could smell the board,
the lead solder.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm like, I kind of like that smell too. It's like the circuitry smell. I don't know, things that I want to kill me. I like the smell of.
I like it. I love citrus smells.
Okay,
I'm a big fan.
Citrus smells. How did you get strip balls?
So one of my favorite candles from Yankee Candle Company is the Sage and Citrus.
Mm-hmm.
Easily,
one
of my most relaxing. But also mint. I love the smell of mint. It's so
mentally kind of
yeah. Well, it just like opens up my body a lot in a way that I don't quite expect. The nostrils and everything else. Yeah, just like a flower.
Stings the nostrils.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of mint personally. It's also one of the reasons why
mint, I could smell like the weed in it, not marijuana weed, like the actual plant behind it, and it's a little too much.
See, I like that.
Sure about that.
Earthy, aromatic smell is what I'm a big fan of. It's the same reason why I love I can't taste parsley. I know some people can. I cannot taste it. I have a dead palate, but I love the smell of parsley because it does have that very earthy, weedy, like almost like fresh cut grass smell that I really do enjoy.
That's really ironic considering your background. So,
oh yeah, I love cooking. I have a dead palate, so I over season a lot. Hopefully people understand and love me for it, but yes.
See, I feel like I have
a plate on the table. A little much salt, but we'll try to balance it out.
Well, see, I feel like I have a muted taste for salt sometimes. So like Gloria's like, oh man, this steak or this burger is really salty. And I was like, really? It tastes great to me. Like,
but
Mark
please
dies at age 35.
Exactly. Let us know what your favorite smell is in the comments floating directly above Mark, because he's now got a little halo because he's dead. Died at 35.
Oh, I thought it was going to be my smell or my scent. It's okay, fine. All right. Well, I guess.
But until next time.
Cheers.